So as a whole, Chinese stocks have really performed poorly over the last several years. And a big question that is now starting to come up is, has the outlook for China started to turn positive? So over the last several years, again, Chinese stocks have not performed well, due primarily to China's zero COVID policy. And there was also some policy decisions that were made that were viewed largely as hostile to private business. So I think it's safe to say at this point that things have started to turn around a bit. And I want to highlight four main areas as to why I think that may be the case. Number one, Chinese government has abandoned its zero COVID policy effective January 8th, 2023. And so we are starting to see the economy return to a pre-pandemic level. Not there yet, but it is heading in the right direction. Secondly, it appears as if the Chinese government is starting to relax its crusade that it took against domestic tech companies. So all signs point to them relaxing some of those policies. So again, that is positive news from an investor standpoint. Third, the Chinese property market. So that's been a huge anchor, so to speak, on the economic growth of China for the last several years. We saw it culminate really back in 2021 with the collapse of Evergrande. Most recently, the Chinese government has announced a $25 billion fund to recapitalize the Chinese real estate market. So it's essentially a $25 billion bailout fund for some of these property management companies and property companies as a whole. So again, that's positive news from an investor standpoint in the hopes that the Chinese property market gets back on more stable footing. And lastly, geopolitically speaking, it appears as if China is willing to re-engage with the West. And that's a big one, I think, mainly because if we look at the most recent Davos World Economic Summit that took place, there was some comments made by the Chinese vice premier, effectively saying that the Chinese economy is open for business and that China is looking for policies that are going to strengthen, quote, the international cooperation and world peace. So that's good rhetoric to hear coming out of China from a Chinese official. Now, I would echo cautious optimism here because I think it's important to understand that China doesn't always follow through with what it says it's going to do. So I think that's where the risk comes in here. Be cautiously optimistic about China. Again, it is a riskier play, I think. And so if you're an investor that doesn't really want to take that kind of risk, then I don't think you may want to look there. But again, it comes down to awareness, ownership of your financial planning picture and wealth management scenario.